Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football right here on Texas Football. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined this morning by Bobby Burton and CJ Vogel. And guys, what an eventful day yesterday on a heater.
Look at that.
Like said, and on a heater indeed, as 3 commits happened yesterday. And Bobby, I'm going to let you start.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And Blake, I appreciate it. I've got my party hat on today because of yesterday. Longhorns just absolutely demolishing the recruiting trail right now. 3 commitments yesterday, all in different categories. We had a portal transfer in Andrew Makuba. We had a 5-star safety in the high school ranks. That's a 2024 prospect that enters school here in less than 2 or 3 weeks, actually. And then the last piece of it that's interesting, we had a 2025 tight end commit yesterday, Emory Winston out of Calhoun, Georgia. And so to say that Texas is on a heater, yes, the avalanche is going down the hill. That is what's happening right now, and it's happening on all levels. I talked to some folks this morning inside the building. Man, everybody at Texas right now has they're excited about the direction of the program, focused a lot on the game coming up, obviously, but recruiting is a piece of the puzzle here at Texas. And they are excited, to say the least, right now about the way recruiting is going, about what they're working on right now. Of course, they got a huge game coming up with Washington, but CJ, Makuba, Phil Sami, Winston. And then I'm going to add this note right here at the outset. I texted with Trey Moore's agent this morning. The answer was hopefully today we'll see. So Trey Moore, the edge prospect out of UTSA with 14 and a half sacks, 17 tackles for loss last year, expected to make a decision today. Texas and Alabama going head to head for him. There's more recruiting news we'll break down over the time here, but out of the gate, CJ, what did you think of yesterday? Because you and I were texting and talking off screen a bunch yesterday. What did you think, buddy?
No, I mean, to talk about all the fireworks and excitement that's gone on this week, I mean, to think there could be even more today, very exciting. And I think, for one, this week for a lot of coaching staffs across the country is a very stressful time. You're trying to hold on to your guys. You're trying to hold on to your class and make sure that pen meets paper. For Texas, I mean, it's anything but stressful right now. And I think that's very encouraging when you consider what's the bigger picture right now, moving forward towards the end of the month and into 2024. There's a lot to play for. And, that staff is really looking forward to knocking out everything they can currently right now this week and putting all attention towards Washington in the semifinals. So all in all, you cannot be, upset at all about what happened yesterday. Obviously, there are a few names that we're continuing to monitor. And, Bobby, like you said, that little note about what possibly could come today as well. Big news for Texas, and you got to be excited.
Yeah, I just think that they're on such a roll, Blake and CJ, that it's kind of pinch me time. I mean, look, I've been doing this for a long time, and you just don't see this stuff. I want to mention this. I read the comments on our videos, by the way, not just during the videos we do themselves, but actually post videos. So if y'all post comments, I'll go in and read those. And somebody compared this today, and I wanted to bring it up. They compared it to Texas barbecue, how Sark's built this. Low and slow, but in the end, it ends up pretty dang good. You know what I mean? So 5-7, 8-5, kind of a slow burn, right? To now 12-1. And as Krishan there says, a trifecta on Monday. It's kind of just built and built and built. And now it's something a little bit special, And look, we talk about it, et cetera, but there's that news. I also have some other news for you guys that I've been working on. Aaron Hampton, a young man out of Dangerfield, Texas. There's some concern that Texas, now that they took Xavier Phil-Sami and Andrew Makuba, that he is not going to be a part of this recruiting class, or that Texas may not have room for him. I was told unequivocally this morning That's not the case. The math there doesn't add up. Texas is losing 3 portal safeties as it is, plus graduating probably 2. So don't look at it that way. And then there's also the possibility, I was reminded that Hampton plays offense. He's being recruited as a athlete at Texas. So don't think don't think twice about that. He is definitely part of the plans for the University of Texas and their recruiting situation. We're also waiting on Anthony Smith, guys, out of Jasper, the linebacker. CJ, you have anything this morning you want to go over with folks before we get going into taking questions, talking a little bit more ball here with everybody?
Yeah, Anthony Smith, I guess, is the number 1 2024 guy Texas fans are still, keeping a close eye on, and for good reason. The visit went very well with Anthony Smith coming down to Texas. The current Texas A&M pledge, what's going on at Texas A&M over the last month or two, really has things, in question right now for the future should the Aggies hold on to that pick, which at the moment I'm feeling is unlikely. I do think that Texas is in that position to make the flip. I do think that in the next 48 hours, we'll see some sort of movement. And I think, if you're able to pull off a last-minute flip from your in-state rivals right as you're about to walk into their house in the SEC, that's gonna go a long way. And good news for Texas is already momentum is on their side. There's a lot to play for at the end of the month. As I've mentioned, it's a perfect storm here. I think it's just a matter of when and not if.
Hey, CJ, real quick, while we're talking about Anthony Smith, I want to bring up 2 quick questions for you. Britt Rasco says, CJ, do you know who hosted Anthony when he visited? And then Mike, I'm going to add on to that. Mike Gosnell says, what do you think the confidence level is with him?
I have not heard specifically which players hosted Anthony. I know that he's close to a good number of players from that Houston area. And so my best guess is, there's some sort of conglomerate rather than a single guy like we saw with Jade and, Andrew Makuba this weekend. So a full, Houston effort right there for Anthony. And, again, I feel very strongly about where Texas is making that late push for him.
There you go. All right. Thank you, CJ. Okay, guys, I want to circle back around to Andrew Makuba for just a second here. We got a couple of tweets that I want to bring to y'all's attention. This first one from Matt Miller. He says, this is a massive get for Texas. I know of NFL scouts who had a top 100 grade on Makuba. He's one of the 10 best players to hit the portal, in my opinion. But then I also want to bring your attention to this one. And it's from PFF, the stat gurus. And they said this season, 344 coverage snaps, 0 touchdowns allowed. So when you go back to Miller's comment here, what's y'all's first thoughts?
Listen, I love Matt Miller. I think he does a great job evaluating, NFL prospects. His hit rate is pretty good, and that's why he's been doing this for a very long time. He's a respected guy in the draft community. It is encouraging that Texas is replacing NFL talent with more sought-out NFL talent. And, that normally takes some time whenever you consider most of the time recruits and the next era of defensive prospects comes from the NFL or comes from the high school ranks. You normally have to wait for that progress and that development to fully show up on the field. Right now, Texas is skipping that step. And they're going out and they're adding a guy who's already on draft boards. As Matt's comment mentioned, that top 100 rating is a day 3 grade. And it's very rare that you see a guy not necessarily just jump at that opportunity to start his NFL career right away. Coming home, being able to play into possibly a first-round caliber player next year in the SEC is something exactly what Texas is needing right now, and they're going to get it next year once Jade Barron departs.
No doubt it was a huge pickup for Texas. And then, guys, the other thing that I wanted to bring up here, and let me put it up here on the screen, is this news from Steve Wilfong of 24/7 Sports about 5-star Dominic McKinley. He says, I think it's possible that 5-star defensive lineman Dominic McKinley, the number 31 overall prospect, signs on Wednesday. I don't think it will be with Texas A&M. I'm keeping an eye on Texas, and LSU currently has an official scheduled for mid-January.
So, look, Texas is definitely involved here. I did some checking on this myself. But he is not expected to sign with anybody on Wednesday. Texas was going to be in home with him with Steve Sarkisian on this past Friday. Texas elected to hold that that home visit from Sarkisian until January strategically. So while A&M may be fading with him, which I do believe they are fading with him, even though he remains committed to them, LSU and Texas are trending. Other schools are trying to get back in to the group as well. I don't think Texas expects him to sign on Wednesday. Would they take that signature? Absolutely. I mean, that's part of the game. But I don't think Texas expects that. Don McKinley is saying something separate as well. So is his mom, obviously. So I would not take that as a definite that he's going to do it. But I think from Wiltfong, who's clearly followed Mike Elko throughout his career and broken news around whatever Mike Elko says, it's just like him putting in the crystal ball last week for Ty Anthony Smith to flip to Texas. Okay.
Yeah, Bobby, real quick.
Yep.
I just wanted to chime in. That defensive line spot that we're kind of talking about with Alex Foster, Dominic McKinley, De'Alen Evans, even it will be filled, in that second signing day period. Obviously, Alex Foster mentioned earlier this week to me that he is not going to be signing Wednesday either. So something to monitor and something that might not be of the utmost importance at the moment as we finish this 2024 first signing day.
All right. Hey, look at this tweet right here, guys. Morning from Wynn Parish, sitting in the deer stand with the boys in my ear.
That's great.
We had another check-in. We had another check-in too earlier this morning from somebody in the deer stand. So those guys are getting it this morning. Obviously, they've been up a while. It's safe to say. Oh, man. All right. Well, plenty of time to get your questions in, so please do so. By the way, we have Bob Shipley coming on here in probably just a few minutes, I imagine, Bobby. He'll be joining us after coming on a couple times last week. Great guest, as always, so looking forward to that. But please get your questions in and then hit that like and subscribe button. We would definitely appreciate that as well. Guys, we have a super chat here from South End Zone Queen. And thank you, South End Zone Queen. They say lots of cryptic tweets from Milwee and Cyril's last night. Who are the most likely commits out of Trey Moore, Solomon Williams, Ty Anthony Smith, and then Dominic McKinley? Obviously, Bobby touched on McKinley.
So here's what's happening with Solomon Williams, because we haven't had time to talk about him, CJ. Texas is going to go after either Trey Moore or Solomon Williams. Okay, they're not going to take two, and it looks like they've decided they want Trey Moore. And so Solomon Williams is the odd man out there. Now, he's probably going to end up at A&M. And Solomon Williams is a really good football player. But you can't take them all. Okay? Who are the other two that they asked about? But I wanted to clear that up for folks that have been asking, because I know we haven't talked about Williams. Okay, Milwee and Searles, I believe we're talking about either Moore or Smith, not McKinley, based on my personal intel that I received as early as this morning. I want to read y'all a tweet on Moore just to reiterate something real quick on Moore. And I got this morning. I asked when Trey Moore was going to make a decision. This is from his marketing agent. It says, hopefully today I will keep you posted. Hopefully today I will keep you posted. So I think that could have already happened behind the scenes, perhaps. That's what they were talking about. It could have been Ty Anthony Smith. It could have been a lot of different things. And that's part of the original tweet with Steve Sarkisian, right? With the on a heater right now. that all ties in, right, guys? I mean, it's you don't know which angle the Longhorns are coming from right now. I will say that difference between Trey Moore and Solomon Williams, though, y'all need to understand that's the kind of give and take that happens in recruiting.
Very true. All right, guys. While we're on the subject of Trey Moore, let's take this question from Jason Trimble. He says, who's Trey Moore going to take snaps away from?
I don't know. And that's the question. Do they have 4 edges right now without Trey Moore? So you have Barron Sorrell next year. You have Ethan Burke. You have Justice Finkley. Jamon Tapp, possibly. Colton Vashik. Outside of that, the only one left would be Colin Simmons, Zena Umeozulu, those guys. I don't know that he takes snaps away as much as what we talked about, CJ. I see you shaking your head. They want reps split. They want high energy for 30 reps from all their guys as opposed to mid-level energy on 60. And I know that that's not the case, but people don't realize this. Everybody's not Casey Hampton that can play 100 plays at 100 miles an hour, or a guy like Aaron Donald. You know what I mean? That's just not reality, especially at this young. What do you think about that and that edge position right now, CJ?
Yeah, no, it's been interesting. Seemingly everywhere on this defense this year, we've seen rotations. We've seen guys split, up to 30, 40, 50% snaps with other guys at their position so far this year. Really only Jalen Ford in the middle is the only main consistent piece that hasn't come off the field this year. And that, I think that's very encouraging, one, because you're seeing the depth in the production from your roster currently. But I also think that's something that to maintain that level of play for 40 snaps a game at the highest level that you could possibly play without fatigue becoming an issue, you need to have guys waiting for you on the sideline to come in and continue that type of play. And so I'm encouraged, because, the defensive end position has not necessarily been rotated through as much as we've seen from the interior, even at safety and at cornerback as well. We've seen guys rotate, drive and drive again. And a lot of time it's just been Sorrell and Burke out there playing, much more higher snaps than what we've seen throughout the rest of the defense.
Hey, I got to say this real quick. The Juju saying, someone get Vogel some Longhorn gear. He's got enough of this Texas Ranger stuff. I know half of you guys are Ranger fans and the other half probably Astros fans. I agree with you. I'm working on that thanks to Jeff Clark at 40 Acres Apparel. Hopefully he sends some CJ and Blake some stuff as well. CJ, Blake wants that Ranger stuff, though.
CJ, you were fine. Don't listen to anybody else. The Ranger stuff is very welcomed on this program. It's the Astros crap we got to keep out of here.
No. Hey, I got the laundry going now. I'll be back to normal tomorrow, all right? I promise.
All right, guys. We're going to take this next question here from Lizzie Hope. And Lizzie says, what about any inside guys? We have a ton of edge already, but Sadir Mitchell and Vernon Broughton can't do it alone. And then they add Sorrell, Finkley, Burke, Vosick. Moore is crazy, but we need inside guys too.
Don't forget about Tapp in that category, right? Jamon Tapp, he seemed to be coming on at the end of the year as well. Look, inside, you mentioned Sadir. You've mentioned Vernon Broughton. You can also look at Aaron Bryant. I think people thought he came on at the end of the year. You also have Trill Carter coming back. They're going to have to look at, hopefully, the real potential difference maker inside, and I think everybody would agree with this based on talent, is Jure Bledsoe. Okay? But how big can Jure Bledsoe get and still maintain the athleticism where he's doing the splits at 290 pounds? I mean, I don't know if y'all seen some of the stuff he can do, but it's kind of freaky. But if he can add another 10, 15 pounds over the next 6 to 9 months here, that gives Texas a true interior presence that can not only hold up against the run, but also get after the passer. And so all of that combined, I think, is big for the Longhorns. And you're right, Lizzie. I mean, it's part of the whole idea that Texas needs depth everywhere and better players everywhere. That's what Steve Sarkisian and his group are trying to do right now.
All right, Bobby, it is that time. We are going to bring in our special guest today, Bob Shipley. And Bob, how you doing this morning?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
How you doing, Coach?
Doing great. How are y'all doing?
Hey, man, we wanted to get you on this morning, talk a couple different things. State champions were crowned over the weekend. I know you've won a state championship. Know how that feels, and I also know that you watch a little game. You watch some games or two. You come away with any takeaways from this weekend's state championship before we get into some recruiting stuff?
DeSoto is real good. So is Duncanville. But, DeSoto's beat everybody that's been in front of them. So, they get the crown. Wow, I don't know that I've seen a more impressive football team ever than, DeSoto. They are the real deal. But, got to see some good guys, with Simmons in January, that was good. And, the big behemoth 6'8". I was with my son yesterday, Jackson, and playing with his boys, and they went to all the games, and I was asking my little grandson Stone about it, and he said they have one guy that's 8'6".
Not too far
I
off.
said, well, he looks like he's 8'6". I think maybe 6'8". But anyway, just a lot of talent out there, and a lot of friends of mine out there coaching, to try to win. And I thought it was good. I think there's a lot of good prospects out there, and I think we've got some really good ones that showed pretty well. Some didn't really shine that much, really, but it's hard to, you can't just make a judgment on one game.
Well, your team, Albany, that you said you've been tracking all year, ended up winning the state championship, huh?
Yeah, they did. Adam Hill had a great game. I think, Denny Faith is a good friend of mine, and I just love that small town football. But it was really exciting to watch them win their second championship in a row, 4th overall. So yeah, that was great.
What do you have to say about Aledo? I mean, give me a break.
Oh.
I mean, do they ever lose? I mean, what is it, 11 state championships or 12 now?
It's unbelievable. Tim Buchanan and I went to college together for a while at Abilene Christian before he transferred, and he started that thing from nothing. They were almost like South Lake was back in the day. Just a little farming community. Nobody a second thought. And they built a perennial winner. And a lot of people accuse him of recruiting and things like that. And that's. When you start winning and churning championships and putting kids in college, people want to be a part of that, and they start moving in, and there's not a whole lot you can do. But I'm not saying that, I don't know what the history is there. I just know that when you get a chance to play for a guy like Tim Buchanan, when he started that, and it just started steamrolling, and man, they seem unstoppable. I mean, for their division, I don't know. I mean, it really is title town, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Hey, Coach, we're gonna segue here and talk a little recruiting, because you have a unique perspective, in my opinion. You've actually been in the room when signing day happens. There's a famous photo of one Tom Herman giving double rods to the Longhorn Network. And Bob Shipley happens to be the one in the background.
Yeah, it's me and Tom Herman in the picture. I'm sitting there like a little, schoolboy in a one-room classroom. Like, okay, I'm not saying a thing.
Well, hey, try to tell fans, if you don't mind, what it's like on signing day. Give them a kind of rundown of when the coaches get to the office, what all is going on behind the scenes, how harried it can be, that sort of stuff.
I think back when I first got into college coaching, which was 1988, it was a lot different back then, with everything, with the way you can communicate, and obviously cell phones and everything that's going on now. I'm not even sure we had fax machines in the late 80s, but anyway, it's not as hairy as you think. There still can be surprises, obviously, but I think, the head coach has everybody that's recruiting these kids. I mean, they don't want any surprises. And so, I mean, it's like Santa's list, you check it twice, you make sure that there's not going to be any embarrassing situations that come up. And so, I don't remember being a part of being on a staff where we had, any surprises. And that's a bad look, when that happens. And so I know, Mac and Tom Herman both, just did a great job of making sure they had all their guys secure. But really the hairiest day probably is the day before signing date,
which is today. It's today.
Yeah, today. Yeah, it really is. You're still tugging at these guys, you're still trying to get a flip here and there, maybe. And at the same time, you're still trying to hang on to your kids that other people, and especially with, today's recruiting, somebody offers, a kid a pretty good incentive the day before the signing date. I mean, that's a possibility, obviously. But I know that Sark and those guys, they're not going to leave any stone unturned, I'm sure. So I would say the day before signing day is the one where you're sweating it, and just once you get everything, secured, and you've talked to these guys and their parents or whatever, it's usually runs pretty smooth.
It sounds like to me, CJ, I'm going to let you go next here. It sounds like to me, Bob, you're almost describing like the coaches are the parents around the kids' Christmas, right? And so all the stuff has to be wrapped on Tuesday night before Christmas on Wednesday.
That's exactly right.
And then Wednesday, it's about everybody celebrating together, kind of thing.
Yeah,
that I can understand what you're getting at there. All the hay is in the barn come Wednesday, basically.
Right.
And so that's where it's at. CJ,
right.
what'd you have, buddy?
Yeah, Coach, thanks this morning. This last, I do have a question in terms of, culture fit and kind of the evaluation of guys from certain programs. You mentioned Alito and Coach Buck and the winning that they've had there. Obviously, Coach Sark has made it a priority to go find winners. They had 12 guys in the 2023 cycle that won or played in a state championship in high school. In the evaluation process, how important is it, from your side of things, to find guys that have that sort of mentality coming into the program that they experienced in high school?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. It's a fair question, that you look at. I think it depends on where you are with the development of your program. When if you're at a place and you've got a brand new head coach, I'm not going to mention any names. They're losing a lot of recruits, and you can't be as picky. When you're going in and trying to get guys with whatever great character, good grades, whatever it is that you're wanting to find, you can't be as picky. You got to go get dogs, just the best guys you can to help you turn this thing around. And you just hope and pray your coaches can keep them corralled and you don't get embarrassed and they can stay eligible and all that stuff. When you get to the point where, Sark is now and this staff is now you can cherry pick them a little bit, and I don't know. I've thought about that, and I've seen guys come in from winning programs, and you say, well, they expect to win, they know how to work to win, and all that stuff. But I think that's important. I think there's certainly exceptions. I want guys that, as they say, they're dogs. I mean, they're like they got a chip on the shoulder. And I remember visiting with Mac when Jordan was there, and 2007 or 8, and Colt, Quan Cosby, and those guys. And he said, you look at all these guys, and he pointed out about, 7 or 8 guys. And he said, those guys all came from smaller schools. When they came in here, he said they had a tremendous chip on their shoulder. They had something to prove. And so every day was a Super Bowl for them, every day in practice. And it elevated the play of everybody around them because, they were obviously good athletes, but, they still had something they felt like they had to prove because they came from a smaller school. Maybe they didn't win championships, maybe, whatever. So, I think there's a couple of different things you look at. Character obviously is outside of athletic ability is very, very important. And that's another thing you've seen, recently in the Texas program. You hadn't seen a lot of embarrassing, things come up, about guys. And I say that, knock on wood. But, they've done a great job of getting good kids in there, kids that buy in, and kids that police each other and take care of the locker room and keep each other in line. Hey, man, we got something special going here. Don't screw it up, And so I think winning is very important, having a winning attitude. But if you can do your research and find these guys that just refuse to be beat, they refuse to lose a sprint, when you're running sprints after practice, just when you're doing competition drills, they refuse to lose. Those are the guys that I want, not necessarily, they may not have been blessed with, a great team or whatever, but they're guys that love to compete and they love to win. And those are the guys that I would say, even more importantly than those that are coming from winning programs, because guys that come from Alito, are a place like Alito. I'm not saying Alito, but how do they handle adversity? I mean, how many times has Alito been behind at halftime? I don't know. I haven't looked at that, but how do they handle adversity? You don't know how they handle it, but these guys that have a chip on their shoulder, they've come from maybe the other side of the tracks, so to speak, from the school they were at or whatever. But they know what it's like to overcome adversity, and their plan every day is to win, to prove I belong here. I think that's probably the most important thing for me.
Yeah, it's great. That's a great answer, because you know what it says? It speaks to you're always trying to get better.
Yeah.
You're always trying to develop yourself in and of just by yourself and trying to keep improving. And that leads me to development at Texas, Coach. One of the things you and I talked about off air whenever you first decided to help do some stuff here on Texas Football is you were just excited about the development of the players over a time frame. Like that as a head coach, you can only deal with the guys that you got. You can't be worrying about the guys you don't got. So you have to develop your own team. And that's one of the things you thought that Coach Sarkisian and his group had done such a nice job of. You speak a little bit to that for folks to hear that.
Well, I think it's those guys that aren't always. I like the strength and conditioning guys, for example. That's where development starts to me, And I like those guys that aren't always tooting their own horns because they're too busy and they're working guys. And so when you get a strength coach that works well with the staff, in other words, he's got a plan for defensive linemen. He knows exactly what these guys need. They have to have great hip strength and hip flexibility. So do offensive linemen. And so they're going to work on that. They're going to develop that stuff in those guys. So it's not just in the weight room. It's doing explosive movement stuff whenever they're working. You may do plyometrics or other things, but they're doing explosive movement stuff that are very similar to what the coach has maybe sat down and visited with the strength staff about what I need from my guys, and I just think, I don't know. I mean, if I knew the exact way that they've been developing these guys, it would be worth a lot of money. But you just look, the proof is in the pudding. You look at guys and they're 2 or 3 year starters, and they just never really, in the past, it just seems like they just never really, improved. And who saw T Sweat doing what he did this year, And I was when Trevondre, when he came in and was recruited, I was there and I thought, oh, this guy's kind of soft. I knew his head coach, and he's a great guy, and we knew that. I just didn't know how well, he would, be able to parlay into, first team All-American. Oh my goodness. That's a perfect example of how this staff has developed talent, because before that, he was a good player. He wasn't a great player. And I don't know that anybody would say, based on what I've seen, this guy's gonna win the Outland. This guy's gonna be first team All-American. But through the development, and it's not just the physical development now, it's the mental development, the emotional development. How do you handle adversity? How do you handle success? How do you handle, when you get double teamed and blown back 5 yards, because it's going to happen, So just the overall development, physically and mentally, is amazing what they've done. I haven't been there. I don't know how they've done it, but it's obvious they've done it. And to me, it's probably, other than just the talent that they've been able to recruit and the leaders they've been able to recruit, that's the most impressive thing this staff has done, in my opinion.
I'll tell you another guy that this comes off I think of when I think about development at Texas right now, Coach, is Barron Sorrell. You take him, he wasn't heavily recruited. He was kind of gangly as a freshman, but every time I see him, literally, if I've gone 3 months without seeing him, it looks like I'm seeing a new person. It's probably how you feel about some of your grandkids that you don't see as often. You know what I mean? You're like, whoa, he's grown a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, she's a little taller. Those kind of players it's a mix of what you're talking about. It's the guys that have this ultimate upside, like Tavondre Sweat, right? Where, yeah, he may have been soft, but you knew there was some molding to do. But there's also extracting the most out of guys like Barron Sorrell, who may never be a first-round pick, right? And don't have that kind of upside. But you know what? If he gets the most out of himself, he can play in the NFL long-term and make a lot of money doing it. And it just feels like that's part culture, part development, all of those things mixed together.
Yeah. Another piece of that puzzle that you don't talk about much is a gal named Amy Culp. And Amy Culp is in charge of the nutrition for all the athletes at the University of Texas, but she was working primarily with football when I was there. And, you know, that's a pretty big deal. There's a lot of people that have a lot of different, in fact, you know, A&M, you know, they got a little heat because of some of the maybe unorthodox things they were, you know, trying to do with their nutrition program. So it's one of those things that you never hear about until there's that lack of development. And then somebody says, hey, what are we feeding these guys, you know, or whatever. But yeah, I do think that's good. I would like to say this too, Bobby. I think it kind of goes hand in hand with what we're saying. When you have a guy like that who not highly recruited, but he can also everybody has raised the level of expectation in that program, it seems to me. And so you're going to see guys like that more, I think, because of the work that's being put in, the mindset, the attitude, the talk in the showers, the talk in the locker room, the talk in the dorm or whatever, you know. And guys like that, it just makes sense that guys like that buy in and they see, okay, I've been watching, you know, whoever, just name that Trevondre Sweat. I've been watching Sweat. And this is how you do it. Okay, I used to think I worked hard. I used to think I ate well. I used to think I lifted, you know, smart or whatever. And so because that ceiling has been raised, then you're going to see more and more people, I think, that will start separating themselves from other players across the country. That it all goes under the umbrella of culture, I guess.
Yeah, it's almost like some guys are self-starters and some guys come in and then get put into a culture that allows them to start becoming the best of themselves. Right?
I see now. I get it now. That's how you do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. I mean, it's like you have some guys that are they've been working the hardest they possibly can since they were 10, and you have other guys that were extremely talented that need to be put into a system where they can push up like that. Coach, I appreciate your time, man. Thank you this morning. Enjoy your grandkids. Enjoy your time off. You got the Thursday night. We got Football Theory with you and Rod Babers.
That's right.
That's going to be a regular series here on Texas Football.
Yeah.
We appreciate you, bud. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. See you Thursday.
All right, take care of yourself, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Right.
What a good guy, man.
No doubt.
Guy. Yeah.
That was fun. That was insightful.
Hey, 60. He's not wrong about DeSoto, by the way. They won the largest classification in 6A football in the state of Texas, and they won it by 60 points. By 60 points. That's unheard of. That's worse. That's worse than Georgia beat TCU last year. I mean, that is just a beatdown.
They also beat Duncanville pretty bad earlier in the year as well.
Well, yeah, but Summer Creek's not bad either. It's not like they're, it's just
they got some legit talent on that team. So that was an impressive win. I mean, it was over in the first quarter. We talked about it, yesterday, but the game was decided with 4 minutes left in the first quarter. I mean, they would have needed a miracle at that point, even if DeSoto didn't score anymore with the way their defense was playing. All right, guys. So we have some big news that happened while we were talking to Coach Shipley here, and Texas has actually revealed their uniforms for the Sugar Bowl. So we are going to show it right here, Bobby. They just put out this
promo video. See if it's icy whites.
Yep.
Yeah, it is.
There it is.
It's going to be the icy whites. We had somebody ask yesterday about that. That's good stuff.
Stormtrooper looking New Orleans. I'm all for it.
Yeah. Look at the silver patch there. College football playoff logos. That's some good stuff.
That looks good. Stuff,
all right, so that question's answered. Texas is going to be in the icy whites in New Orleans. Hey, Blake, I want to say thanks to our sponsor, and then we need to reset because we've had over 1,000 people join us since we started. We need to go back over some news. But first, I want to say thank you to our sponsor. I want to introduce you guys to Game Time, the app. It's the fastest growing ticket app in the country, and for good reason. You can get images of your seats before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive, and it's absolutely perfect for last-minute decisions. This is great for an arena or a stadium where you don't know the feel of it, kind of like the Superdome. Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. I've personally used Game Time for sporting events and concerts for both myself and my family. So if you need last-minute tickets, there's really no better place. Tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code ONTEXAS for $20 off your first purchase. Use code ONTEXAS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code ONTEXAS. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Bobby, as you said, we need to go back over everything that we talked about at the beginning of the hour. We've had a lot of people join us. And by the way, thank you all for tuning in. We definitely appreciate the support. But, Sark said it best. On a heater. On a heater indeed. And I'm going to let y'all take it away and kind of run down the 3 commitments that happened yesterday for the Longhorns.
Yeah, CJ, you go for it, buddy.
I mean, you mentioned it earlier, Bobby. They've hit on all 3 levels. They're taking care of the 2024 class. They're addressing the needs in the portal. And then they're going to jumpstart on 2025. And we saw a guy get added to each class yesterday. And, I mean, very rarely do you see 3 commitments in a single afternoon. But, man, it had us busy. It had us excited. And it should have a lot of fans at home watching right now thinking Texas is moving in the right direction, and they absolutely are. And we're seeing the proof in the pudding on the field, and we're seeing the results on the recruiting rankings as well. 3 guys yesterday, Xavier Phil-Simi in the 2024 class, Emory Winston out of Georgia, going out of state to address some tight end needs in the 2025 class as well. And then obviously, getting the big one, coming back home, Andrew Makuba jumping into the class, coming home again is very exciting for me, having covered him dating back to his junior year over at LBJ in Austin. So it'll be fun to see him back in the burnt orange rather than the Clemson orange this year. So again, a big day for Texas football, and I don't think they're done this week. Bobby, you mentioned it earlier. Trey Moore's a guy that we're keeping a close eye on today. Anthony Smith's in the fold. Remind us again what you can tell us about Trey Moore.
Yeah, Trey Moore. Smith's not in the fold, so we don't want to say that you misspoke there. Trey Moore, that'll cause a meltdown on Texags of, it'll be apoplectic, and not that I wouldn't enjoy it. But the reality with Trey Moore is I spoke and texted with his marketing rep today. There is a very good possibility that decision is made today, whether it be Texas or Alabama. He visited Texas a week and a half ago, visited Alabama this weekend. It's coming down to those 2 teams, and he's trying to make a decision. At first, guys, it was just before Christmas is what I was told. Then I got that text this morning, and it could be as early as today now. So be aware of that, and that's something that we're going to be monitoring right now. Also, with Anthony Smith, you mentioned him, the young man out of Jasper. He returned from his official visit to Texas on Sunday. I'm told he wore some A&M gear to class on Monday afternoon, but I want to say this. These guys have gear of every single team in every single different way. Who knows what it really means? We may not hear from Anthony Smith until Wednesday. One of the things that's important to note here is Smith is an early enrollee. So he's not going to be a guy that carries it to the second signing day. He has to make a decision relatively quickly here. And so we'll hear from him fairly soon. Also, I want to mention, I think it's important, we mentioned Dominic McKinley. Steve Wiltfong, a guy I've known forever, said that it might be possible Texas were to get a commitment and a pledge, including a signature from McKinley on Wednesday, kind of put that out there in the ether. That is not what we're hearing, although Texas would definitely take that pledge if it were possible.
Yep.
But it's not what we're hearing at this time. Last thing that I wanted to mention, a couple of people have talked about Aaron Hampton out of Dangerfield. Possibly the math not adding up for Texas was the quote. Well, I was told this morning in no uncertain terms that the math does add up for Texas. They want Aaron Hampton as part of this recruiting class. And I was reminded that not only is he a possible safety, but he's also a possible wide receiver. They're going to get him on campus and see what he can do. And he reaffirmed his commitment to Texas last night and this morning as well. So that's the big news, pushing it around. But there's a lot of ancillary news and nuanced stuff going on right now that frankly, it's hard to keep it all in under wraps, because you just don't know. I could get a text like yesterday. I got a text. We got off of this thing at 9:15. I get a text at 9:20 that some things are afoot. That's what's happening right now in Texas recruiting. Everything is happening over and over.
That's right. And less than 24 hours away from National Signing Day. And Bobby, we've had a lot of questions regarding National Signing Day and what we are going to do right here on Texas Football. And I know we're going to start at 7 a.m. tomorrow. I believe that's still the plan. We're going to be going all day. But tell folks about tomorrow's coverage right here.
Yeah, absolutely. From 7 to 11, we're going to go live. And then from 12 to 5, we're going to go live as well. CJ's going to have to get up early, guys. It's not me that's late. It's CJ. No, I'm kidding, CJ. I really am. It was me that was late this morning a little bit. The reality of it is I just think that the faxes and the emails now, or the DocuSigns, however they're doing it, with that, they start at 7 a.m. And I do believe that University of Texas is going to start knocking that out. We're going to go over each guy individually in the class as they commit. Matt, our producer from behind the scenes, has done some special work for us to make that hopefully fun. We're also going to bring people in, talk a little Longhorn football recruiting for the day, and just have some fun with it. Tomorrow should be a celebration.
Yeah.
Yes, there's work to be done, right, with Anthony Smith, potentially Trey Moore, but it should be a celebration because it's right now Texas is heading, and we didn't even talk about this with the pledge of Phil Sami last night or yesterday afternoon. Texas has moved into the top 5 in the national team recruiting rankings. That would make the 3rd consecutive national top 5 ranking for the Longhorns.
I'd say that's pretty good, Bobby.
Yeah, I mean, CJ, you've been covering. You're interesting because you and I, you're kind of the young guy. I'm kind of the old guy, right? As far as recruiting is concerned, I'm used to this back in the Mac Brown era. Ever since then, it's been hit or miss. There's been one class here and then a not so great class there. One class here that's good, and you've now seen it a little bit differently in that you've seen Sark put together 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Try to explain what's happening in that regard as far as why you think that's going in that direction and what you see from talking to the kids and other people on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, I mean, first off, National Signing Day forever was always one of my favorite days. I remember waking up in the morning on Saturday, getting the sports page for my dad and, going through the top 50 in the DFW area just to see how many had penciled in their name to Texas. And so I always think, like you said, it's a day of celebration. It's a day of, expecting or getting to see what's coming to the 40 acres. And that's always very exciting for me. And it also brings fireworks. You never know, what could happen across the country. And, that's just what you sign up for. But with Texas specifically, I look back to when I really started first, following recruiting, which, was very briefly in my high school days under Charlie Strong. And then a little bit more firmly whenever I was in college under Tom Herman, you really get, excited. Like I say, you really get a sense of this is going to be the next playmaker wearing the burnt orange and white on the 40 acres. And, there were ups and downs, the turmoil of having to, sit there and think at the end of the season, is this the year Texas moves on from their head coach? What's going to happen with that recruiting class? And it's never easy, and so seeing Texas now in a position that's no longer a question. That's no longer up for debate. You have the consistency of seeing the trajectory of the program, and that this staff is going to be around for a long time. It's a big sigh of relief. And I think recruits are now realizing this. You look back specifically at a guy that they just landed yesterday, Bobby, Andrew Makuba. One of the biggest reasons why he did not pick Texas was because of the uncertainty with Tom Herman and his staff. And sure enough, what do you know? Tom Herman's let go. He ends up at Clemson. That's a recruitment that Texas probably should have won out of high school had the results on the field been there. And so it's exciting. Recruits are taking notice, obviously, of when Texas is winning. And, it's hard for fans across the country to not recognize the Longhorn logo when it's in the top 4 Final Four of the entire country in the college football season. And recruits are certainly on top of it. And they're ready to see Texas back on top because, as we mentioned yesterday, when Texas is winning on the field, negatively recruiting Texas is impossible.
And CJ, I'm glad you said that because that's actually going to lead us to this super chat from Jeff Calloway. He says, Sark and Company's recruiting is on fire. Do y'all think it's more added pressure or more in a comfort level to continue this year in and year out?
I don't know. I think it's definitely more a comfort level that he thinks he can get Texas to this level and keep it there. Because you see, even last year, Texas A&M 2 years ago had, one of the best recruiting classes of all time, of which half of them are now gone, by the way. But there was a halo effect that carried on into the next year, that even carried on into this year a little bit. Okay. Sark's going to benefit from that somewhat, right? And so that will make it easier. It doesn't make it great, though, necessarily. You still have to go out and earn it. And that's something that Sark's proven that he's willing to do. I mean, he's willing to fight the fight to the very end on guys he wants. Go ahead, CJ. You had something to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, look at the flips that he's had late in the year. Anthony Hill last year specifically, he's already in the works for a couple this year as well. It goes to say that there's a consistency here of not finding the top dogs early in the cycle, prioritizing him, and then filling in with where he needs to be in terms of flips and getting guys to really reconsider late. And I think that's very encouraging.
I do too. I mean, he's played it like a chess master, whether he meant to or not. I mean, I don't know. Kelvin Banks, Neto, DJ Campbell,
Cam Williams.
Yeah, Cam Williams. I mean, all of those guys, he's played it really, really, really I almost said savagely, but that's kind of how other people probably feel, actually.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Treated it that way. Yeah.
All right, guys, this next question is from Bill Bowden. And he says, Bobby, is Sark using roster numbers for each position as per the NFL? If so, do you have the number he wants for each position group?
Well, it rotates a little bit, Bill. He's not, obviously it's not exact to the NFL, because the NFL roster is 53 versus 85. But I do think that he kind of keeps that in mind as it relates to how many players he really wants to travel with. I think the travel number is 60. Does that sound right to you guys? And so you can have guys kind of in the baking in the oven on the backside, those freshmen or sophomores that, especially the offensive line, that really need more weight. It just so happens it's such a physical position. But yes, he does have that in mind. It's not always perfect, no matter what you try to do, but they're at 17 or 18 offensive linemen now, right? When he first arrived, they were at 9.
Insane.
Yeah. And so 5 running backs, 3 to 4 quarterbacks. Those are the kind of typical numbers that you'll see. If you remember that also, when Sark first got here, he had more wide receivers on scholarship than offensive linemen.
Yeah.
That always makes me laugh.
Roster construction matters. That's my point. And that's what he's doing. Yeah.
I got this next question here is from UT Parking. And he says, any updates on Dylan Evans?
The latest I have from that is Texas continues to recruit him. He is potentially signing with A&M tomorrow. But if he does not, and it lasts until January, Texas is expected to get an official visit from Dalen Evans. And look, whether it's Evans, Alex Foster out of Greenville, Mississippi, or Dominic McKinley, I think Texas has at least one open spot for one of those 3. How that all shakes out, I think, is TBD, to be determined.
Yeah, and I think we'll see that in the next signing day as well. Alex Foster moving to the next signing day. Dominic McKinley, like we mentioned earlier, unlikely to sign tomorrow. And again, Dalen Evans, one to watch as well.
Guys, this next question from Jose Mata. And Jose asked, how does Texas' current recruiting momentum compare to their best ever years?
That's making me go back to the Vince Young class. That's how far
way before my time. I always point to that 2018 defensive back class as one that I was very excited for. Obviously, it kind of left some, to desire for from that class. But the late push in the last couple of years that we've seen from Sarkisian's classes has blown me away, because it really puts the stamp on the momentum of the class and puts an exclamation mark on, just how exciting these players are. And the types of the caliber guys that they're flipping at the end of the year puts an exclamation mark on it, and it's icing on the cake.
Hey, you know what it does too? And I'll say this, it adds momentum to the program. Have we had an uneventful signing day or a non-momentum signing day under Steve Sarkisian?
No.
I mean, think about that. right? Best recruiting class, I think, was 01 was Vince Young and like a half dozen other guys that ended up playing 7 or 8 years in the NFL. And Texas was just getting them all. But I think that from my vantage point, it's fundamentally different right now because I think Texas is taking advantage now and is going to be able to take advantage next year of this 2023 season. I mean, they're one of 4 teams in the college football playoff, and they are a blue blood. It's not like TCU, where TCU went to the Final Four, but they're not really a blue blood. They're never going to be seen as that because they just don't have the fan support. They're not the State University of Texas, right? Texas can use this to, kind of jumpstart or trampoline, however you want to say it, into a new era. And that's what I'm hoping Sark is able to do because it certainly seems like that's the course trajectory they're currently headed.
And now they got the SEC logo firmly on their chest rather than a promise of we'll get there.
Yes. Yeah, it's all of that pushed together is just really nice. Yep. I mean, it's like I said when we started this, yes, Sark's on a heater, but at some level you got to pinch yourself because there's 3 commits in a day. One of them flips from Florida. One of them is a 3-year starter at Clemson. And then you get your one of your top ranked tight ends on the board into a top ranked quarterback in 2025. I mean,
it's rolling.
Yeah.
And both out of state.
What's that?
State. I said in both of them out of state.
Yes, absolutely. Both 2025s out of state. KJ Lacey out of the Mobile area and Emery Winston out of Calhoun, Georgia.
Bobby, if I may, real quick, how impressive is that to get an underclass or a junior in high school that both are out of state to commit to Texas, whereas in years past, guys that have out of state that have really tried to consider Texas are guys that have lasted much longer into cycles and guys that Texas has really had to fight off home, schools for.
There's 2 things to think about that. This is a good question. I think I'm glad you brought it up, CJ. So when Sark first got to Texas, he had to rely primarily on Texas and wherever his assistants had ties to, right? And what has happened in recruiting is that the process has accelerated so much that A&M and Jimbo Fisher had ties with all these guys going back 4 years. I mean, they started – David Hicks is out of Katy Paytown, the defensive lineman that was one of the top players in the state last year. Well, Elijah Robinson started recruiting him as a true freshman. Yeah. I mean, Steve Sarkisian has been playing catch up this whole time. I mean, that people that are, I mean, right now, Texas only has, I think, 2 of the top 10 or 2 of the top 15 players in the state of Texas committed. People have to realize that Sark has been playing catch up this whole time to Jimbo because he had his guys out there. OU and Lincoln Riley now they've had turnover too. That helps. LSU's had turnover, so that helps. But now, for the first time, Sark is the senior guy among those 3 those 3 chief competitors. Think about it. Elko, this past is now at A&M. Brian Kelly's only in year 2 at LSU, and Venables is just completing year 2 at OU. So he's gone from being the last one to see somebody and get to know him to the first one. So what's
Isn't that crazy to think about?
Yeah, no, but so what's that going to mean in recruiting? Right? That's a great question.
This next question is from Steve, and Steve asks, Horns are kicking butt in recruiting as they have so many things in their favor now. How big of a deal is NIL in these recruits' decisions? And realistically, who can compete with the Longhorns?
What do you think, CJ? I'm going to let you take this one to start, and I'll talk a little bit more about NIL.
Yeah, I don't think there's, any hiding NIL and the impact that it has in college football now. I mean, when you talk to these, upper end guys, these high 4 stars and the guys that have 5 stars next to their name, they're aware of what's going to come to them and the opportunities presented to them NIL-wise. And that's for a number of schools across the country. With Texas specifically, I think it's the combination of a few things. It's one, you come play for the biggest state school in America, basically, with the in terms of college football brand, with the Longhorn on your chest. That's a big part of it. You can live in the city of Austin with almost infinite, NIL opportunities and marketing opportunities in the booming city of Austin. We've talked about it forever. Texas does a great job of marketing the city of Austin and living here, quality of life, et cetera, et cetera. You get my point. But they're aware of it, and they know that the Texas, the Texas football program and really, the systems in place at Texas are going to take care of them. They know that there's, not many teams that can, go toe to toe here. And I think that's a testament to, one, the Texas fan base, and two, the collectives behind Texas football program right now, and just how well that they're able to operate as a system and machine, taking care of their players right now. And I think that's really important. And, every school's doing it. It's all about who's presenting the best package and making sure it's the best, really the best product on the field for their players to get developed and get to the NFL, where the money is, significantly larger.
It's a jumping off point, right? And I think that the impact NIL has on the University of Texas has been overwhelmingly positive. They've been successful. I think that the Texas One Fund is doing it the right way in so many ways. I mean, giving back to the community as opposed to just going out and doing whatever. I mean, they're at the Dell Children's Hospital.
The Arboretum.
That's what you want, man.
Yeah.
I mean, look, teach these guys how to be smart with what they're doing, teach them to give back and make them give back as part of the process.
Yep.
It makes too much sense. At the same time, it's also the devotion of a lot of people, not fans, not unlike you guys, that are donating to TexasOneFund.org. There's also people behind the scenes that are trying to help Texas in each and every way possible. And it's all part of the process as it relates to recruiting these days. And thankfully, Texas, like I said, is one of those uniquely situated schools. And CJ talked about it. It's the state school in the state of Texas, no matter what A&M tries to do, or what, TCU or Baylor, or name it, right? Texas is the state school. So they're going to be competing against the Alabamas and the Floridas and the Ohio States that are similarly situated. And sometimes, or Tennessee even right now is really big on NIL.
Look at Missouri and what they've done this cycle.
Yeah. And Missouri. Yeah. Missouri has really tried to up its game. My point being is that NIL is here to stay, and what it means and how it means is one of those things. One of my things is how Sark has navigated those waters, right? He's taken the ship and steered it in a way that he retained guys last year, Jordan Whittington. He attracted guys like Adonai Mitchell. And then he kept, he keeps building it through the recruiting process as well. If they keep doing that, things are going to work out really, really well for the Longhorns long term. Yeah. And he's shown a proclivity to do these things. He really has.
While we're on the subject of NIL, Ralph Neely says, how do we donate to the Texas One Fund, Bobby?
Yeah, absolutely. Go to TexasOneFund.org. It's TexasOneFund.org, and they have all kinds of things. The great thing about it, if you want to get involved, if you're a football fan, please do football. If you're a baseball fan, you can do baseball. If you're basketball, women's volleyball. I mean, look, they just won a national championship. I mean, my hat's off to those ladies. I mean, if you saw that was just a butt kicking on Sunday. You can choose the sport that you give it to. While most of us here, I believe, are probably football fans, hence the name Coffee and Football and the title of this program. I think all of us are also Longhorn fans. And you may have a particular thing that you like to donate to, et cetera. Just do it however you feel. The great thing about it is they're getting the kids out in the community, right? And trying to get them to be part of the Austin area. They did something with mobile loaves and fishes a couple months ago. They're out, food for the homeless. I mean, that's what you want your guys doing. I mean, I'm really big on that stuff.
All right, well, guys, we have a super chat here from UT Parking. He says, any tight end news that stays solid to Tennessee?
Yeah, as of right now, it's my understanding. Again, we're waiting to hear on JT Sanders and whether or not he's going pro. We believe, I was told 2 days ago, that it's 75-25 by the person that would be his future NFL representation, most likely, that he would likely be going. But And he's number 2. He's probably the number 2 tight end in the draft. But, I mean, he likes it at Texas. Adonai Mitchell similarly likes it at Texas. Alfred Collins likes it at Texas. But all 3 of those guys, I don't think Texas should be relying on the fact that they're coming back. But Texas may not be able to go out and get someone like Holden Stays who wants to play immediately without knowing that JT Sanders is gone for sure. Once they know JT Sanders is gone, then Holden Stays becomes a different category. Jordan Jolly, the tight end out of UConn, potentially becomes a different category for Texas as well.
All right, this next question is about one of Texas' recent commits, Matthew Golden, the transfer out of Houston. And Douglas asked, "Hey, Bobby, how excited are you about Golden? I watched film on him, and he is Xavier Worthy 2.0. Due to his serious hands with a great catch radius, he could be as good, if not better, once UT coaches him up." Y'all's thoughts?
You know, I lean on something that Rod Babers has been talking about with him personally. Rod has been saying, this is the guy you want to get in space. Give him 4 to 5 yards any which way you can. And all of a sudden, his kick return ability, we've talked about it, right? I guess I should preface all of this with it. 2 of 9 kickoffs this year. He only returned 9 kickoffs all year. 2 of them went for touchdowns. And that doesn't include the one he took about, 40 yards, 45 yards against Texas? Mm-hmm. Okay, or 50, whatever that return was. So the idea for Rod is he's a little bit different in Xavier, in that Xavier has that elite acceleration. This guy may be actually a more subtle gliding runner with the football that can maneuver those kind of things out of the backfield even better than, say, a Keelan Robinson or a Xavier Worthy. You know, so do you understand, CJ? You talk a little bit about what I'm mentioning there, because I think somebody else giving another viewpoint would be good.
Yeah, no, I think what Rod, I like everything that Rod has to say about Matthew Golden. And for a large part of it, I agree. I think with the shiftiness, you know, you see it on the goal line. And he scored against Texas from the 3-yard line this year on a route where he really was just dancing around, and that's, yeah, I try to put it lamely there, but I mean, that's exactly what it was, a little quick whip route straight to the outside, and he just beats a guy based off of speed and quickness. And, Xavier Worthy has been very special at Texas. I don't want to take anything away from Xavier Worthy, because I think at the end of the day, what he's done at the receiver position is amongst all-time greats for the Longhorns in their program. There's no denying that. With Matthew Golden, I think there's a little more versatility with what you can do with him. Again, like you said, Xavier Worthy, once he catches the ball, he can go. It's straight line. It's get up the field and let me beat that guy to the edge, to the corner, and get upfield. I think with Golden, we've seen it, so far this year. There's a little bit more of a dance around quickness to him, which extends plays whenever there's not necessarily an edge to beat. I don't always advocate for guys going laterally across the field. You want to get north-south, excuse me. But with guys like Golden, and I think Jonte Cook as well, it's kind of the combination of get the ball in their hands and let them figure it out, rather than beeline up the field and get as many yards as you can that way. So it's a different style of play, but I think if you kind of build your team around receivers like that, it just magnifies the opportunity for you to bust big plays, that otherwise wouldn't have gone, the distance.
All right, we got a super chat, guys. This one from Dax Kelm. Want to thank Dax for the super chat. He says, any updates on Christopher Ross returning to the team, or is he in the portal?
So this is a great question, and it's very topical. Chris Ross obviously was let go from the team about midway through the year after he got injured. For whatever reason, he was taken off the team roster. He was kicked off the team. That being said, he has been trying to get back in the good graces, it seems like, of the Texas coaches. He is not currently practicing with the team, so he's not back on the team. But to my knowledge, CJ, he's not in the portal either. No. So I don't know that a final decision has been made, other than right now he's not on the team. And so, if Texas allows him back on the team, et cetera, we don't know. He could easily go in the portal, though, at another time. We just don't know at this point. CJ, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think a final decision will come at the conclusion of the year. Just kind of a now that we have time to sit down and chat and really see where the two sides stand, I think that's, essentially where we'll see him. It was, upsetting because there was flashes against Alabama very early in his career that I thought, were pretty promising. So, again, I hope everything's right, physically. And of course, I hope everything's right mentally on the Chris Ross side of things. And, should a reunion be possible down the road, I'm all for it.
All right, Tedapare1 says, should Texas have any interest in sophomore Damani Jackson, the corner from USC and 5-star from Modern Day in the portal?
I think it's down to, I was told it's down to Alabama and Michigan most likely, but I don't know that he's officially in the portal yet. I mean, is he officially in the portal? Should Texas have interest? He would be one of those players that might be a numbers breaker. I mean,
Bobby, real quick, I was going to say, I'm not sure Texas would. Look at what they have that's very young on the outside right now, and look at the production and the experience that they've already brought to the table with Malik Muhammad, Terrence Brooks. These are two guys that make plays, and they're still very young. I'm not sure I'd want to take them off the field.
Here's the deal with Damani Jackson may be a first-round top 10 pick. Sure. And I'm not sure Muhammad or Brooks are that. And so Sark has a distinct feel. When he goes up, when he wants to go for somebody like that, it's got to be a guy that's an Adonai Mitchell type that will officially make that leap. And Matt Mockschnell, who does a great job helping everybody out here with news and info, says Damani Jackson is in the portal. I haven't heard anything, though. To your point, CJ, I've heard nothing that Texas is interested there. He just might be good enough that, everybody in the country might take him. It's like Jahmyr Gibbs. Right. Alabama had plenty of running backs, guys. But Jahmyr Gibbs goes in the portal. Everybody's going to look at Jahmyr Gibbs. Damani Jackson might be that guy, but we'll see.
Fair.
I'm more interested in seeing if Zachariah Branch goes in the portal. The freshman.
Yeah, no, that's a fun one.
That was one that we all need to. If that happens, then everybody needs to turn their head, because you talk about a potential replacement for Xavier Worthy. That dude has some real jets. So.
Hey, Deuce wouldn't be too bad either, Bobby.
No, I agree.
Hey, little Penix energy. wanted you to know, Bobby just purchased the same hat for my son for Christmas. He's going to love it.
Blake, look, I've got a collection of Texas hats that goes back probably 30 years, 35 years. I got one that I wore on the intramural fields back in the day. So, yeah, love my Longhorn hats.
No doubt. All right, Dean asks, how do you recruit when you're preparing for a championship run? Lots of coffee and football.
Yeah. The coffee part for sure. Good question. They took last week off. The team worked strictly with Torrey Becton and his group. So all last week, the coaches were on the road. The behind the scenes admin staff was busy preparing game plan and practice stuff to start on Friday. They went through, I believe they'll go through the 22nd, which is this coming Friday, and then come back the night of the 25th. And so the coaches get a reprieve and get on the road for a week. Mm-hmm. It's not easy. It is a lot of away time. Coaching is a nomadic business. And so I feel for those guys, but it's very difficult. Hey, Blake, we need a people that have just joined, just reiterating. Andrew Makuba, nickelback from Clemson, commits to Texas. Xavier Filsaime, safety from McKinney, commits to Texas. Emery Winston, tight end out of Calhoun County, Georgia, 2025, all committed to Texas yesterday. I want to go over one last thing. Yeah, on a heater from Steve Sarkisian. For people that didn't see this, can you bring up the PFF stuff and Matt Miller stuff on Makuba? Because I think all the tidbits that we mentioned today, besides the Trey Moore news that he may be trying to make his decision today, I think that this gives you a sense and gives people a sense of what Texas is getting, right? Because that's ultimately, it's nice to hear about recruiting, but what is Texas getting? And basically, if you're not able to pull that up, Blake,
I'm fine. Give me 1 second, Bobby.
Well, Matt Miller, who's been on this show, by the way, as the NFL draft guy for ESPN behind the scenes, he's saying that massive get for Texas. I know NFL scouts who had a top 100 grade on Makuba. That would put him in the top 3.5 rounds. He's one of the best 10 players to hit the portal, in my opinion. So keep that in mind. That's number one. Number two, Blake, don't forget about this. Yeah, from Pro Football Focus, which tracks every snap of every player, new Texas DB Andrew Makuba this season, 344 coverage snaps, 0 TDs allowed.
And what's interesting about that stat, Bobby, is those snaps aren't all coming from the same position. And I want to reiterate where those snaps are if I have some time. It's just 620 snaps total last year for Clemson. He had 96 of them in the box. So, kind of an over linebacker, if you will, in heavy sets. 158 of them, right around 160 at free safety. So back deep, and then more than 350 as a true nickel. So he's all over the field and he's making plays everywhere. And most importantly, he's not allowing touchdowns from any of them.
Yeah, and that's what Rod talked about, right? Was Texas wants more versatility from its DBs where they can mix and match. It makes, because Rod says the nickel back in Texas's defense typically doesn't travel. That means if you motion him across, he stays short. He stays on that side of the field. So
one more note on Makuba. I was texting with his trainer yesterday. He basically put it out, very bluntly to me. He said, just wait to see what we have in store for next year. And that's exciting because he's coming off of, a couple good years already. But now that he's back home, getting, back into the swing of things in the Austin area, I'm excited.
There you go.
Hey, Bobby, going back to that news for a second about Phil Simi, Juju says that 24/7 Sports reported that he would be participating in bowl practices. Do you know if that is true?
I do not know that to be true. It is possible, although he is in the Under Armour All-American game.
Yeah.
So he would have to do a little bit early and then come back, and then maybe he's there the next week. Maybe he's decided not to play in the Under Armour game.
I think it's very unlikely.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what's going to happen. We talked to Parker Livingstone last week about that, and he said some guys would be practicing, and I don't know that all of those ones are. And so we got to figure all of this out. I mean, we will know actually beginning by probably even Thursday, Friday, if some of those guys are practicing or into next week. We expect Christian Clark, by the way, the running back out of Arizona, to be one of those guys. Yeah, along with Parker Livingstone. Ryan Wingo was expected to be one of those guys, and maybe he will for a couple days, but he's got the All-American practice, the Under Armour All-American game as well. So, or he could be in the Army game. I can't remember which. But my point being, or not the Army game, the Adidas game. My point being, there's a lot of stuff going on right now as far as those incoming freshmen. We don't have it all sorted out. I'm not sure Texas even has it all sorted out quite yet. Because, they still got to get great. You got to remember, these guys still have to officially get their diplomas from their high school. So if the administrator at some high school is out on vacation, that could delay it a day. It could delay it a weekend. And that could be all the time they have. So that's what I mean when it's not that Texas doesn't have their ducks in a row. They do. The players have their ducks in a row. But you can't manufacture a diploma. You just this will happen.
All right, y'all. We're going to do one last question here. This one from Zane Petty. He says, call your shot. Where does Texas finish after February in recruiting? I'll start by saying I think number 4. CJ, we'll let you go next.
I like 3. I think they make that jump. I think Ohio State and Alabama up at the top. Georgia's in that mix.
Yep. Georgia's number 1, I think.
Georgia's up at the top. I don't think anybody's catching them. But I do think Texas is in a position to make the jump again into that top 3. And again, just being in that top 5 for 3 straight years is very, very promising.
I'm going to hedge. I'll say 3.5. I like CJ's optimism, and I understand Blake going at 4 because I will add this. I don't know all of what's going on in recruiting at those other schools and how much they have left, how much meat they have left on the bone. But I do feel like it'll be a top 5 class, which is, that's where you want to be, man. You want to be in that top group at all opportunities.
Ashton Holloman, Bobby, there's no 0.5.
There is in my world. There is in my world.
That's right. Bobby, tell folks what they can expect later today right here on Texas Football.
Yeah, absolutely. CJ and I are going to do a recruiting breakdown. Then we have the live stream tonight. Obviously, at 7 o'clock, Rod Babers, Aaron Hogan, CJ Vogel will be joining you guys. Also, if there are any commitments or any news that breaks and we feel like we either need to go live or create a separate video, we will absolutely do it for you guys here on Texas Football. We appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for visiting with us each and every morning. It's a blessing to me around the holidays in particular. Just really great, and appreciate you guys very, very much.
That's right. And want to thank all of you for tuning in. A huge number of y'all tuned in today, so we definitely appreciate that. Thank you for the super chats. Also want to thank Game Time for sponsoring today's show. Bob Shipley for coming on and talking a little football with us. A great guest as always. Don't forget, tomorrow he will be on with Rod Babers on, Thursday. He will be on with Rod Babers with Football Theory. So be sure to check that out as well. And we will be back tomorrow morning. Don't forget, we're going to start at 7 a.m. So an hour early. We'll have you covered around the clock on National Signing Day. Going to be a great day for the Longhorns. No doubt about that. And for Bobby Burton and CJ Vogel, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.
I got one thing.